do this. It's only like 4 minutes. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I know that we were just meeting together as a full math department, but I also wanted to talk about what are going to be some of the things that we're going to be normalizing throughout the whole school as far as intervention is concerned in relation to Transmath. So in regards to Transmath and the intervention that we are starting to pilot and normalize throughout the whole school from middle school, how do we feel? Which picture visual is perhaps the most indicative of where you're at in that journey? Ms. G.
In Transmath,
Yes.
I do the one with the plunger.
The one with the plunger. Why is that?
I am completely lost. In
Okay.
Transmath, I have tried to view the website,
Mhm.
the textbook, and I feel that it is not aligned to the students' prior center.
Pick on someone else. Ms. G.
Mr. Cruz.
Yes.
I like that. I can't see, so. But that middle guy who's laughing, I think,
This guy right here.
he's like smiling.
Yeah.
I think that's like a fake smile. That's how I feel when I do Transmath. It's
Yeah.
like, you can't be kidding me. This is it. That's how I feel. It's like how she just repeated it. Like it just doesn't align, and I don't know if I'm using it as a proper tool. Like I'm using it. I don't know if I'm leveraging it right or if it's just not right to be what it's
Supposed to be.
supposed to be. Yeah.
All right. One last person.
I feel like the lessons are a little choppy and like they're saying confusing. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't
So
know.
which one would you feel
I
like
would go
you
with
are?
bottom right.
Bottom right, this one right here?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Me, I think that it would have to be kind of this one as well, right? Because I also do feel like it's a little convoluted at times and it might be a little confusing. But one thing that I am always thinking about is the problem solving activity in the curriculum that we have, right? Because problem solving strategies, they transcend from no matter if you're in first grade, what's a problem solving strategy as a concept, to whether you are in high school or whatever the case may be. Problem solving strategies, they transfer, right? Because there's a protocol that we need to follow. So switching our, I guess, attention would be to taking a look at this data analysis, right? And looking at the student work as our, I guess, foundation to be able to design our intervention groups, right? The standard that we were testing, I believe,
That was a
Thursday.
Yeah.
I started Thursday, was 7G4. And the question is, a circle has a diameter of 26 units. What is the area of the circle to the nearest hundredth of a square unit, right? So let's take about 30 seconds to look at the differences that we see in answers and think about how can we identify and address the learning gap that these students are exhibiting in regards to look at the different strategies that they've used. Maybe perhaps look at the different answers that they have. So take about 30 seconds to just look at the production of the work, so like that we can have a good conversation based on what the students' needs are and what their learning gaps are.
That's what result was it?
Excuse me?
That's what result? The middle one?
No. That is another student.
I saw that paper. I saw that paper. Very interesting. Yeah. I wish I could teach you, man. I wish I could teach you.
All right, so can we identify some of the gaps, Mr. Cruz?
So what I noticed with all three is like information in terms of like background information. So the first student has no background information that he can leverage versus the second student who has some background information but probably doesn't know how to fully use it, but he's written it down, he or she written it down, which is the formula versus the third one where it has background information and execution on that background information.
Yeah, could I say something?
Sure.
So the one to the right is correct, right? That's
Mhm.
the exemplar. So just something that makes that like exemplar is kind of like we were just saying. First is a visual of what's happening, and then they're writing down all the steps to solve it correctly. So the work is very organized, and it's correct.
Yeah.
You see?
On the first one, I'm thinking more like the student will be, like he was trying not to show a diagram, so he probably wanted to go like towards answering the question, writing it as an equation. I don't know what happened there. On the second one, I would say he or she has some of the information, like they tried to illustrate it, same thing with the second one, but there was something going on once they tried to work it out. And the third one is like, okay, they create a visual representation, they write down the formula, and they did it like step by step. That's why they have the correct answer.
Now, I have a question. So, what type of intervention would this student need in order to be successful? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3.
Would you mind like explaining what each tier represents?
So, Tier 1 is a full group, full instruction, right? Where you're just literally teaching to the middle of the classroom. Tier 2 is more of like a little bit a little bit more of a reteach, and Tier 3 is literally breaking everything down step by step. Making sure that it's procedural and making sure that that's a process that can be attached to any question that would be looking like this one. So, which tier would you feel like this student would need to be in? Tier 3.
That's a 3, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're in order. Tier 3
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So this one would be more of the Tier 2.
When we teach, like he or she kind of knows some stuff. He
Yeah.
just needs to be reminded like what stuff goes where. It's like a see me redo it, and
Mhm.
they'll get it.
Like he's got the area, he's got some knowledge of it. You can see area, but he's getting confused what area is,
Yeah.
which one to use it, the correct formula. It's almost there.
Would everybody agree that within maybe a cycle of intervention for like a week, this student will be able to be
Oh, yeah.
successful,
Probably.
Even less, yeah.
right?
Probably.
So, what intervention or perhaps what misconception did the student have here?
I think it's a formula. If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to see what is he or she is trying to write on the formula. But they do know like the parts of the circle, which is
Mhm.
important. It was just the formula that's where I think I left them off with.
I disagree. I think they don't know what radius is.
Yeah, they definitely know.
There's an R right there
But
on the circle.
They use diameter.
But they use
But they use the diameter.
So
That's
they,
on like
But then they wrote area equals 26.
A equals.
Right. But then we also see that he also wrote
Based
that
on-
area equals
Base
base
time.
times
You're
height.
getting really
But-
confused, yeah.
he misleveraged the anchor chart in his notebook because in the anchor chart it shows a rectangle for that formula
Got it.
versus a circle. It shows this formula for that circle.
There is something that needs to be addressed though. I feel like
That's what
Ah.
knowing this
Like,
student,
I can't read.
it's radius, right? It's R square.
Yeah.
That dot means multiplication and sort of like that pi sign, but he
Yeah.
used an N instead. Right, so that's what I'm holding on to, and that's my entry point for intervention. Just making sure that he understands that the diameter is 2 times the radius, and the radius is half the diameter, and looking at the inverse of that. And then, if there is anything to say about this student here, what would it be? What would it be? Look at what the question is asking. What is the area of the circle to the
Yeah.
nearest hundredth of a square unit? Of a square unit,
So it's like 0.7.
right? So,
Wait, square units like a whole?
no, square unit as in
A measure, it's a unit.
the units of measure.
Square.
It's unit
That's
square.
what he's meant.
Exactly.
Oh, right.
That will be, if there is anything for me to, I guess, give constructive criticism on, would be that part, right? So again, this exercise is literally just so like that we can start taking a look at work as supposed to just be met and not met, and then also going into, okay, what the students' needs are. Because that's really where we're gonna be making our end roles for intervention, making sure that we're identifying our pushables, making sure that Transmath is being leveraged to the best of our ability, just because of the simple fact that in order for us to improve our efforts for the school year, this is the type of work that we have to go into, right? Just so like that we can look at the student holistically as opposed to just looking at them like a bunch of different standards, okay? So, and then let me just switch your attention to the tracker, right? So here in this tracker, we have the interventions that are gonna be split into a month by month basis, right? So this is our mastery tracker for September. Then 2 weeks after that, we had another mastery tracker just to kind of sort of gauge our level of intervention, whether it's working, it isn't working, and then hopefully by the end of that cycle of intervention, then we will be able to have a clearer picture of whether they still have learning gaps or they just need maybe like a little check-in on a weekly basis to just address a misconception that may still be persistent. You can stop with Mr. Cruz. So